Tired of dealing with annoying flies, fruit flies, and gnats in your home? The Zevo Flying Insect Trap is your ultimate solution. Don't wait. Check out the link in the video description now to get your Zevo Flying Insect Trap on Amazon and enjoy a bug-free home today.
A reader suggests that Sony release all PS4 games on Nintendo's next console, even if they don't go multi-format on Xbox. Earlier in the week I wrote into the inbox with the idea that Microsoft and Sony should release all their console exclusives on the Switch too, if they can be made to run on it. I don't know, obviously, whether it can handle current-gen stuff, but I would be very surprised if it couldn't manage anything on the Xbox One or PlayStation 4. Ordinary publishers would have no problem with this. In fact, I'm sure they'd rush to make some easy money from porting over things like Final Fantasy VII Remake, Red Dead Redemption 2, GTA 5, Resident Evil 4, Cyberpunk 2077, and anything else that'll fit and doesn't have an exclusive deal. Microsoft has not only started releasing former exclusives on PlayStation but even before that was putting things like Ori on the Nintendo Switch, so I'm sure they'll be all over the Switch too like a rash. But what about PlayStation? The more I've thought about this, the more it makes sense to me. Sony has already got LEGO Horizon Adventures coming out on Switch, but not Xbox, this year, so why stop there? I'm sure they'd want to have a release gap, like they do with the PC versions of their games, but beyond that why not bring both Horizon games, both God of Wars, and all the Uncharted and The Last of Us games? They're all on the PlayStation 4 and the Switch 2 has got to be roughly as powerful, if not more so. Sony keeps talking about how it's worried about profits and growth, so the Switch 2 could be their savior. Whether it outsells them or not, Nintendo hardware is not really in competition with Xbox or PlayStation. It's just too different in terms of its exclusive games and the audience that buys it. Obviously, Sony would still never consider this in generations past, but now that they and Microsoft have made games so expensive to make, they haven't really got much choice but to look for other places to sell them. I'm sure there's plenty at Sony that don't really like releasing games on PC, just as some at Xbox seem to be fighting against going multi-format. But you can't argue with the bottom line. Xbox only exists to prevent the rise of PlayStation. That's not even a secret, Microsoft has said it all along. So those two are never going to get on. Especially not now that Xbox seems like it's on the verge of giving up hardware. Once they do, I imagine relationships would thaw very quickly, but at the moment Sony must sense that blood is in the water, and Xbox just needs finishing off. But there's no reason that Sony and Nintendo can't be best pals. No, falling out 30 years ago is not going to be a factor now. In all these years they've barely ever interacted, as far as I know. In fact, I'm not sure I really remember either company recognizing or talking about the other, even though Xbox and PlayStation occasionally take pot shots at each other. I'm not saying Sony will do this, because heaven knows they've not exactly been knocking them out of the park in terms of sensible decisions lately, but I totally think they should. In fact, if I were Sony, I'd use a closer relationship with Nintendo in order to create some kind of crossover game, to make up for the fact that they were never in Smash Bros. Maybe even just Smash Bros. PlayStation Edition, with Nintendo versus PlayStation characters. New Nintendo Switch 2 cartridge patent seems to prove backwards compatibility. Why is Bethesda so bad at making Fallout games? Reader's feature. Nintendo Switch 2 has 2 fans as component leak suggests much more powerful console. Older gamers shouldn't worry so much that gaming is changing, reader's feature. You can't complain about a lack of growth and all the other problems at the moment and not be prepared to make some tough decisions. And to me, getting in bed with Nintendo sounds like a hell of a lot better idea than endless live service games that no one wants. By reader Gadfly. The reader's features do not necessarily represent the views of Game Central or US News. You can submit your own 500 to 600 word reader feature at any time, which if used will be published in the next appropriate weekend slot. Just contact us at gamecentral@metro.co.uk or use our Submit Stuff page and you won't need to send an email. More, the best video game of the year is not what you think, reader's feature. More, why is Bethesda so